Thank you. The question is the amendment be agreed to, and I call the member for Riverina.
There are some aspects of the member for Hawke's speech which I earnestly agree with, and if you do business in Australia, you do business with the Australian government, yes, you should pay your fair share of tax. There's no question about that. And for many multinational entities operating, of course, in the global village in which the world is today, as long as they've got a big team of accountants and lawyers and smart financial people, they have been able to, unfortunately, avoid paying the tax that they should. And this is of concern. We as a coalition welcome the continuation of the Organisation for Economic Cooperation and Development's two-pillar solution to the multinational tax avoidance. This was started by the coalition. It's been continued by the government. We are very much committed to the two-pillar solution in October 2021. This commitment was based on securing an exemption for all resources and financial services companies from the framework so Australia's tax base would not be eroded, and very much the landmark agreement to secure such negotiations and such considerations and outcomes was championed by former Coalition Finance Minister Senator Matthias Cormann in his role as OECD Secretary-General, and he began that particular position in June of 2021. We took extensive action over 9 years of government between 2013 and 2022 to address multinational tax avoidance. As the G20 host in 2014, Australia played a leading role in the original project to ensure that there was very much a clampdown on multinational enterprises and entities doing what they've done had done previously for many years, and that is avoid tax. I mean, every business I know, I've run a small business. I mean, the object of a business is to earn money, employ people.
A division has been called for in the House. The proceedings are suspended to enable honourable members to attend the division. The proceedings will resume when the Chair of the Federation Chamber is resumed at the conclusion of the division or subsequent divisions. The member for Riverina in continuation.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. When you run a business, it's not only your job to continue that business's success, because if you don't, you then end up having to qualify to ASIC and other entities why you're running a business at a loss, and you can't do that beyond 3 successive years. But the object, of course, is to minimise tax, but in the right and proper way, the legal way. And as I said before, to employ people to provide a good or a service, and almost all Australian companies do just that. But multinational entities, because of the swathe of financial advisors and lawyers and others they have made an art in not only minimising tax but avoiding tax. And when you avoid tax, what you're doing is you are stopping those vital funds going to governments at various levels to pay for roads, hospitals, schools. You avoid paying your fair share. And I can remember when I was in business, the more GST I paid, the better I knew our company was going, because we were getting those receipts in, and when you get receipts in, tax receipts go out. And you do feel a sense of pride because you're employing people, you're providing a good or a service, you're actually contributing to the wealth of the nation, the common wealth, and that is the right thing to do. As I said, the Coalition took extensive action in our 3 terms to ensure that we addressed multinational tax avoidance. We did, much to the mirth of those opposite, but they all weren't here, and I know I was the Deputy Prime Minister at the time, and I know the work that Senator Cormann, as I mentioned previously, that successive treasurers, including Frydenberg, Morrison before him, played in making sure that we address this issue not only at home but also abroad in the various fora around the world, such as G20, to crack down on multinationals who wanted to avoid paying tax at all, shifting money from Australia elsewhere and the like. Under the Coalition, Australia was an early and vigilant adopter of the OECD G20 base erosion and profit shifting recommendations, and these provisions establish a multilateral approach to prevent tax avoidance and increase tax transparency to tax administrators. And it's a big job. It's a massive job, particularly when you've got overseas entities, huge companies coming in and with their various tax avoidance measures. And I know the Greens, they'd want they're the anti-business Greens and their policies. If they had their way, goodness knows what a mess our financial system would be in. But they're very anti-big business, and you have to be pro-business, whether it's international, large, medium or small. And that's a government's objective, is to create the environment around which businesses can not just survive but thrive. I have to say, disappointed at some of the reckless policies brought in by the Labor government, which has, I believe, been anti-business. But it's not just myself. I talk to any number of chambers of commerce. I talk to business people who run large companies and small, and they are concerned as well about the business environment in which Australia operates, which the Labor government has overseen. I was very interested to see the member for Chifley, the Industry Minister no less, talk about lowering the corporate tax rate. He was quickly brought to heel and reprogrammed, but when the Treasurer didn't necessarily agree with his philosophy on providing a fairer corporate tax rate, I was proud when I was the Small Business Minister, following on from the good work by the former member for Higgins, Kelly O'Dwyer, and no less than Bruce Bilson, who is now the Australian Small Business and Family Enterprise Ombudsman. But whilst I was the Minister, in that important portfolio, the tax rate for business came down to its lowest rate for around 7 decades. And I know I worked closely with former Treasurer Hockey and his successors to ensure that we did provide the framework and the landscape, the environment around which businesses could prosper. The Coalition government measures included introducing the diverted profits tax that limits a company's ability to shift profits out of Australia. That's so important. Introduced the multinational tax avoidance law, which ensures companies do not avoid a taxable presence in Australia. What we also did was strengthen the thin capitalisation rules, strengthened transfer pricing rules, doubled the penalties for tax avoidance, and established the ATO's tax avoidance task force. And I do commend what the Australian Taxation Office does in this space. That particular task force, which was created on the 1st of July 2016, enforces existing laws, and it supports the government of the day's new tax avoidance measures that we put in place, and its work continues. It targets multinational enterprises, large public and private groups, and wealthy individuals, as it should. And from the 1st of July 2016 through to the 30th of November 2021, the ATO raised wait for this. This is a big figure. $24.2 billion in tax liabilities against large public groups, multinational corporations, privately owned and wealthy groups. And this generated collections of $17.3 billion. They're big figures. And that pays for a lot of the aforementioned roads and infrastructure, hospitals and schools filtering down through to the states, making sure that we have the services and amenities that we should provide Australian taxpayers and others besides, Australians who do pay their fair share, Australians who don't have the benefit of having large teams of accountants and compliance officers and legal eagles and all the like to avoid paying tax. Now, interestingly, $15.3 billion of the liabilities were raised against large public groups and multinationals. $13.6 billion of the liabilities and $9.5 billion of the collections are attributable to the task force. But our system is very much undermined when people or organisations avoid their tax obligations. And paying tax should be something that people, in one sense, have a sense of pride in, because it means that their company's making a profit. It means that what they're doing as a company is succeeding. It means that they're doing the right thing by the country, which puts the framework around them and supports them, and of course doing the right thing by their customers as well. But this legislation also highlights an important point, in that Labor has broken its promises on tax. At the last election, Labor said one of its main focuses was to be on addressing multinational tax avoidance, and I'm not quite sure that it's actually met that remit. I haven't done it right. Labor's shambolic handling of country-by-country reporting and changes to thin capitalisation, something I mentioned previously, has been shown up again and again. The Treasurer said we've made it very clear we don't have any proposals for tax increases beyond working with other countries to make multinationals' tax regime fairer. But I don't think they've met their obligations in that regard. But what they have done, what Labor has done, is raise taxes on superannuation. And, you know, that's something they said they'd not do. But we know that Labor likes tax. It likes jacking up tax. They are taxing unrealised capital gains. And I tell you what, if you don't believe or agree with what I'm saying, go and talk to a worried farmer, a farmer who might have a farm worth a certain amount now, and over time the value of that land increases. What Labor wants to do, what Labor has proposed to do, and is to make that farmer pay an unrealised capital gain on that farm before the farmer has even decided to sell the farm. And now, not only does that create complications for the farmer and their how they're doing their business, but also all it's doing is generating complicated work for accountants, and it slugs the farmer unfairly because she or he has not actually sold the farm, but they're having to pay an unrealised gain. I mean, it's bonkers. It's absolute nutty policy. But you know, we know just how uncompetitive our farmers are under Labor laws. I mean, it's an anti-agriculture government. Let's face it. Labor's increasing taxes on franking credits. Didn't work quite well for the member for Maribyrnong when he was the opposition leader and decided he would attack franking credits during the 2019 election campaign. Some might even go as far as to say it cost him the lodge. Thank goodness for that. But banking $500 million in taxes from Australian companies, Australian retirees, Australian superannuation fund and Australian charities under the guise of whacking franking credits, it's not good policy. Labor's ended small business tax concessions. It has absolutely taken the big stick to the instant asset write-off provisions. I know we had them as an unlimited amount during a COVID measure, but I tell you what, they were far better under us than ever will be under Labor. But what Labor doesn't realise is that this is enhancing and promoting and giving small business the opportunity to buy a ute, to buy, particularly if you're a tradie or any other company, but to write off those profit-making assets, which ends up back in the tax coffers anyway. Look, this taxation measure is something that the coalition believes is overdue. Labor needs to stop whacking everybody with its high taxes, but the bill, as I say, is something that needs to be very much looked at.
Thank you. The question is that the amendment be agreed to, and I call a member for Wills.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. You know, across the country, Australians are struggling